Hi, I'm Ryan Szymanski, curator for Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial. And today, we're going to be talking about luck and lucky ships and what that means. Sailors are a superstitious lot. There are all sorts of traditions, and if you're interested, we'll cover some of these traditions in a future video. Let us know in the comment section down below if you're interested in Navy superstitions. However, there is this concept of lucky and unlucky ships that even myself, as someone who's not superstitious, tends to believe in. First of all, it might not be luck specifically. Different ships are their own little enclosed worlds, and so cultures spring up there. Some of these ships have really good cultures that lead them to be really effective ships, and some of them have negative cultures resulting from bad leadership or something like that that causes them to be very misfortunate. You might ask, well, how does the crew changes every so often? You're rotating people out. It's on a rotating basis, so culture can perpetuate through the entire life of a ship. The Navy is huge on traditions, and different ships develop different traditions. For example, Battleship New Jersey had a tradition of being really high material condition, being in a high material condition. So they go to a lot of work to do maintenance, repair, and train and damage control. And so every time an Iowa-class battleship is being reactivated, New Jersey is found to be in the best material condition and is chosen first for that. So there we have several different crews, and yet that tradition is maintained over the whole life of the ship, through the ship's history, which is perpetuated down to the crew. Some ships just inspire love and devotion like that, and Battleship New Jersey is certainly one of those. I dare say any of the ships that were preserved as museum ships today inspire something like that, whether they were lucky or unlucky. So maybe luck is a superstition thing. Maybe it's relating to some other series of factors that are perpetuated. But some ships are lucky and unlucky. So what do I mean by that? Let's look at a lucky ship. You've all heard of the frigate Constitution. She is still a museum ship in Boston. The oldest museum warship you can visit in this country, and the oldest commissioned warship anywhere in the world that's afloat. She is an amazing ship, but what if I told you she was the worst of the first 6 frigates? If you look at Constitution's early history, she is constantly spending more time in the yard for repairs than any of her sister ships. President was far and away the best of the 6. In the best material condition, she was the fastest of the 44 gunners. President was the end-all, be-all ship. And yet, President was captured by the British, and Constitution alone of those original 6 is still left. How did this happen for the worst built of them? And again, that's just my opinion. Maybe some of you Constitution supporters will say Chesapeake was the worst built, or Congress, or whatever. I believe Constitution was the worst built, and yet she's still here. It seems to be a factor of luck. One thing, Constitution captured the public imagination. President never got into any fair frigate-on-frigate engagements. Constitution got into a series of them. First, defeating Guerriere, and then Java, and then Cyane and Levant. Constitution really captured the public imagination and became culturally relevant. None of that might have happened. At the beginning of the war, the British Navy imposed a blockade on the United States. Constitution is trying to escape port, and an entire British squadron corners her. The best frigate in the world, which Constitution was up there, but she certainly wasn't the best, couldn't have defeated this entire squadron in combat. So Constitution makes a run for it. A Constitution, as a 44-gun frigate, is not the fastest frigate in the world. There are smaller, lighter frigates out there. Some of them are in this British squadron. Those ships don't have to beat Constitution in a fair fight. They probably couldn't, but if they can come up alongside and fire chain shot into her masts and disable her, then the bigger, better frigates can come up and overwhelm Constitution. Constitution gets out to sea, is being chased by these ships, and then the wind dies entirely. The whole fleet is becalmed. So the British start rotating through the crews of their various ships to send them to the best of their frigates, the fastest, get into the ship's boats and tow her. So all of these British sailors from 4 or a half dozen frigates are helping tow one frigate to catch Constitution, to disable her. The Constitution's crew is trying the same thing. They are both out in their longboats trying to tow their own ship by oar power, and they're climbing up the masts, dumping buckets of salt water on the canvas to make the fabric swell so that it will catch a lighter breeze better. For a ship with no luck or an unlucky ship, that's the end of it. The British catch you and you're done. Constitution's crew tows her into a breeze, and she's able to sail out of there before any of the British ships catch her in a breeze. And then she's able to fight these battles that make her famous. In a similar situation, President is trying to escape New York Harbor under the British blockade. She's done nothing in the war so far. And on her way out, she runs aground and breaks her back, even though she is the fastest of these, and Constitution was probably the slowest. Maybe United States, but probably Constitution because of her material condition. Well, President is now so slow that when she gets into a similar chase from the British blockade, which there was a storm that blew up that blew the British blockade off course, they figured an American ship would probably come out, and there were one of two possible ways. They guessed the correct way. So a lucky ship, the British squadron wouldn't have even shown up. President is chased down, gets into a running gunfight, and is disabled and captured by the British. So two ships built to the exact same plans, yet one of them has a hugely successful career, and one of them doesn't. It's hard to pin that down to any given factor. Constitution had a number of captains over her career. Isaac Hull, who won the first battle against Guerriere, he's a pretty average captain. He wins that battle and he gets transferred out. Bainbridge, who takes command during the battle on Java, I personally consider to be a fairly uninspired commander. I would put him on the lower level of captains on the Navy's list at this point. And yet, he's able to win a battle. And then Stuart takes command later in the war, and he's able to defeat two British frigates. That's my favorite story. Constitution and United States captures Macedonian, but these American 44s are so successful that by the end of the war, the British say, no British frigate can engage an American frigate one-on-one, not the 44s. So two British warships engage Constitution, and Stuart is able to outmaneuver and defeat both of them. So he is one of the best frigate captains in the world at this point. I'd probably put him at number 3. At this point, I would say the best frigate captains in the world are Philip Broke of the Royal Navy, commanding Shannon, Cochrane of the Royal Navy, who later becomes the inspiration for the Jack Aubrey character in Master and Commander, and then Stuart for the U.S. Navy. So I consider Stuart to be one of the best captains in the world at this time period. Anyway, here we've seen two different ships built identically that have very different performance things, and one ship has the same performance under several different leaders of, in my opinion, very different calibers, with Hull being completely average, Bainbridge below average, and Stuart near the top of the world. So leadership isn't just everything. There's a lot of stuff going on. Then, throughout Constitution's career, there were a lot of chances for her to be lost. She had to get lucky an incredible number of times over the last more than 200 years to still exist today. Her sister ship, United States, the other 44-gun frigate that was built at the same time, was captured by the Confederate Navy in Norfolk and later scuttled. The Confederate Navy lost that Navy yard. So the simple fact that Constitution was stored in the North and then was towed up to New York, even further out of the fighting, helped save her. She's rotten and should have been scrapped a number of times during her career, but the Navy spent money to restore what was otherwise an obsolete ship repeatedly. And sometimes this was through public letter writing campaigns or even public subscription where individuals paid for her. Constitution captured the public imagination so much that Oliver Wendell Holmes, the great American author, wrote a poem about her that compelled average American citizens and school children to donate the money it took to restore the ship. So because she remained culturally significant, she continued to be preserved. There's a lesson in there for other museum ships too. And to this day, she still exists, where none of her peers do. The next closest ship is Constellation, built nearly 60 years later. Do I think that all ships that were preserved are lucky ships? No. And I'm going to pick on Intrepid here for a minute. The aircraft carrier Intrepid, which many of you have visited in New York City, I consider to be an unlucky ship. She was one of dozens of Essex-class aircraft carriers preserved, of which I would rank Yorktown CV-10 as one of the luckier of the class, and Intrepid CV-11 as one of the less lucky as the class. Whereas Yorktown made it through the war relatively unscathed, not that many warships did, Intrepid is basically hit in every engagement she's in. Of all the Essex-class carriers out there, Intrepid keeps getting hit through all these battles. I think that's pretty bad luck, honestly. The ship wasn't doing anything wrong. It wasn't a leadership issue. There was nothing going on. She's one of a dozen identical Essex-class aircraft carriers, and yet every time a kamikaze is looking for a target, they seem to find Intrepid instead of any of these other ones. Some of these other ones, there might be mitigating factors, Constitution being in the public memory, the culture on there. There's nothing else I can say about Intrepid besides it seems like poor luck. And yet, even though I consider her an unlucky ship, she is still preserved as a museum ship today, and she's one of the most viewed, if not the most viewed, museum ship in the world. So her long-term preservation seems like much more of a guarantee than other museum ships, including my own, including Battleship New Jersey. We don't get anywhere near the money or the visitation of Intrepid. So she will likely exist as a museum ship long after this one is rusted away and we haven't been able to maintain her. So I can't do a video on luck without talking about Dirty Billy Porter. You've probably already heard of the USS William Porter. She's one of 175 identical Fletcher-class destroyers that served during World War II. But her misfortune is to the point of comedy. And again, this spans her entire career. And so it's not one crew or one commanding officer or anything else. There's a lot going on here. So, William Porter is brand new, and she is selected to escort the battleship Iowa, carrying President Roosevelt and all of his senior staff to one of the conferences with Churchill and Stalin. Because the ship is brand new, has a relatively new crew, they are conducting training voyages during this war. One of the training exercises is William Porter does a torpedo run on Iowa, which means you line up for a torpedo attack and you program the torpedo, and then you don't launch anything and you peel off, and it's all simulated. Well, the brand new crew on this ship launched torpedoes at Iowa with President Roosevelt on board. Fortunately, Iowa has a crack crew on board. Her lookouts see these torpedoes coming, and Iowa-class battleships are fairly maneuverable, so they're able to turn out of the way and avoid it. Thank God. The green crew of Porter drops depth charges when they didn't mean to, which makes everybody think there's a submarine nearby, and everybody runs off into different attack positions, only for them to then radio that, sorry, we just lost a depth charge. So, unfortunately for Porter, the Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral King, is on board Iowa, and he just sends the ship home for more training. The commanding officer, who I believe this was his first time commanding anything, was sacked, and the ship is sent off. Now, at this point, the crew does more training, they get new crew members, other crew members transfer off, the captain has been replaced, so this should be the end of the problems. But it is not. The ship is sent to Alaska, as far out of the way as you can possibly be sent in the Navy during World War II. And they accidentally, according to some sources, I'm not sure if this has been confirmed, they accidentally drop a 5-inch shell in the base commander's garden during a training exercise. So the misfortune continues. And then this ship doesn't survive the war. At a time when you have ships like the destroyer Laffey, which is a museum ship in Charleston, surviving multiple kamikaze attacks, Porter is missed by a kamikaze that ends up going under her, and then, because luck plays a factor, the bomb, which probably shouldn't have detonated at all, explodes under the ship, breaking her back, causing her to sink. Like, this is the textbook example of least lucky ship in the Navy. The story of William D. Porter is... It's comical. It's unbelievable. Make sure you look that up and read about the full story. If you're interested in hearing more about it, let us know in the comments section down below. Maybe we'll do a whole video on William D. Porter at some day in the future. But definitely worth looking into that crapshoot. It's also definitely worth looking into the story of Constitution and going out and visiting her, because, man, that ship survived so many times when she shouldn't have. Intrepid, Laffey, and any of these other ships we've mentioned that are still around as museum ships, make sure you go and check them out. So, what ships do you think are particularly lucky or unlucky? I was specifically talking about American ships today. Maybe you know some foreign ships that are renowned for this. Let us know in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear about them. Battleship New Jersey receives operating support from the New Jersey Department of State, also from a number of other businesses and individuals. The support you guys have given us has allowed us to continue making cool videos like this one, and we really appreciate it. If you'd like to continue donating, there's a link in the description below. Another way you can support the museum is by liking, sharing, and subscribing so more people find out about the channel and the museum. Thanks for watching.